I started my health and fitness journey around 15, 16 years ago. And if I had the ability of Tyrone Davis and I was able to turn back the hands of time, there are a few things I would do differently if I was to start my health and fitness journey all over again. The first thing I would do is I would create a really simple training plan. For me, I would recommend push, pull, legs, and then a fourth bonus session every week. That bonus session is going to be focused on the muscles of your choice. What are the muscles that you care about most? Do you want to build your chest more, your back, your legs? Whatever it may be, use that fourth session as a primary focus on those muscles. The reason why I would recommend just a 4-day split is it's very easy to overtrain when you first start doing health and fitness. You want to achieve as much as you can in as little time as possible. But what I experienced the most was I used to go to the gym at least 5-6 times a week. And what I realized were the latter 2 sessions, typically the intensity wasn't the same. My objective when it comes to coaching clients is quality over quantity. I want you to do as little as possible with as much gain as possible. And to everybody who is training naturally without any form of performance enhancing drugs, we need to realize that recovery is equally as important as training. So 4 times a week is all you need. Push, pull, legs, bonus. The second thing I would do is I would make sure that I do not copy anybody else's diet. Nobody else's diet, because pun intended, it is a recipe for disaster. I remember back in 2012, and it was the year whereby I went on my first quote unquote lads holiday. I then had a holiday at the back end of summer, and I was obsessed with having abs. I obsessed over it in such a way whereby I went onto bodybuilding.com and I found somebody who claimed to have gone from 18% body fat to 6% body fat. Naturally in my head, numerically, I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I want. Let's just do that. The reality was this individual was of a completely different build than myself. He was 5'7". I was 6'3". He also didn't do any form of cardio. He also was doing a completely different workout split. His diet was not going to be optimal for me, but yet I chose to do it. And what happened as a result, I was in a severe calorie deficit. I ended up losing a lot of muscle, and ultimately I didn't get any closer to my goal. That 6-pack was ever elusive. So do not copy anybody else's diet. The best advice I can give is to go onto things like MyFitnessPal or to calorie calculators and calculate calories for you and your goals based on your statistics, nobody else's. On the topic of calories and counting calories, do not do an extreme calorie deficit. I still say this to this day, and particularly with the clients that I work with, an extreme calorie deficit is not an enjoyable experience. I mean, a calorie deficit to a large extent is sometimes not an enjoyable experience. Do not think that the more aggressive you are with your calorie deficit, the sooner it is that you're going to achieve your goal. The reality of it is, the more extreme that approach is to a diet, the less enjoyable it's going to be. And so I would highly recommend, let's use MyFitnessPal as an example, instead of going for the most aggressive calorie deficit that you can achieve every week, go for that halfway house, go for that middle option. That way you can allow yourself to have the foods that you enjoy, and ultimately you don't have to make as much sacrifice, but still you are on the path to weight loss, to losing body fat. So if you're somebody who's wanting to lose weight, don't just default to the most aggressive path to do so. Find that halfway house, see how your body behaves over a couple of weeks, and if you feel as if you've got the mental and physical capacity to push on a bit further, only then start to create a slightly bigger deficit. But start low and then increase it from there. Number 4 is a really, really poignant one for me, and that is, do not waste your money on supplements. It's the last thing that you want to be worrying about when it comes to health and fitness. You want to make sure that your training plan is in place. You know how many calories you're wanting to achieve each day. You're getting enough recovery every single night. You're able to balance all of this as well as actually living your life in terms of work, in terms of family and friends and all those commitments. Supplements, I always refer to it as the cherry on top. The amount of money I must have spent on supplements. There was a point in time where I literally lived off supplements. I was having protein shakes in the morning, I was going to university, and I had various protein bars, horrendous tasting flapjacks from Maxi Muscle. I will never forget them days. And did I get any closer to my goal? No, I could have just had normal food. I could have planned my food completely differently and I would have honestly got the same results. Supplements are there to give you that little bit of an edge, is to keep you on track. You shouldn't be relying on supplements. Get everything else right first and then rely on supplements. The only exception to that rule would be whey protein, because I feel as if that's a really easy way to get protein in your diet, and so it regulates your appetite, it ensures you're getting enough protein to build muscle, to keep your appetite at bay so that you can lose body fat. That would be my only exception. Any other supplement, honestly, don't worry about it for now. That's something that you need to think of at a later date. A lot of the time you really don't need these supplements, so please do not waste your money. The penultimate lesson and the penultimate change that I would make if I was to do all this all over again would be I would learn to love food. And this may seem really cliche. You may think, David, get a grip, mate. What are you talking about? Why are you getting all philosophical? The reason I say this is, particularly when you start your health and fitness journey, there is a real temptation to find a template, to find a diet that somebody is doing and to just copy it and assume that if you do that, you are going to achieve the results that you want. The reality of it is, and this is why I personally don't do meal plans, is that if you rely so heavily on a set meal plan, as soon as life throws you a curveball, let's say you've got some extra work commitments, meaning that you need to travel somewhere, you suddenly go on holiday, you're away from home for whatever reason, and you're therefore out of routine, you don't have that meal plan to hand, what happens then? Typically what happens is you don't follow the meal plan. The follow-up to that is that you typically get very anxious and annoyed with yourself. And then thirdly, you think, oh, what's the point? You fall off, you eat everything under the sun, nothing that's on your meal plan. You wake up the next day, you feel guilty. You then think, you know what, I'll just start again next week. And that cycle repeats. When I say learn to love food, what I mean is learn to achieve your goal eating the foods that you enjoy. I eat whatever I want to eat. But I say that with an underlying rule of knowing what the quality and quantity is of the food that I am consuming. I'm not complacent, I'm not arrogant about it. I'm just well informed and educated through years of having been conscious about my food choices. So if you are somebody who is really wanting to achieve a goal, my best advice is to do it on your terms, nobody else's. The final lesson and the final thing, and arguably the most impactful thing that I can recommend to anybody watching this video, is please be careful on social media. I spent so many years, especially early on in my journey, comparing myself to other people. And there are some people that I followed back then that I still follow to this day because I find them inspirational and motivational in many regards. But there were many people that I followed purely for an aesthetic purpose. And I suppose in a way, to keep this succinct, because I could go down a rabbit hole with social media, I would highly recommend you surround yourself with people who are educated in terms of health and fitness. Try your best to follow personal trainers, to follow coaches, to follow nutritionists, to follow people who have such a drive and passion for their education. A good way to differentiate it is to try and follow someone who is certified as opposed to somebody who has a discount code. Because we live in a world now where social media is so saturated, and at the end of the day, it's an aesthetic kind of service. The more shredded you look and the more aesthetic, quote unquote, you look, typically those posts make the most traction, they make the most noise, and therefore they tend to make the most impact. But the reality of it is there are a lot of influencers out there with huge followings who have amazing genetics. They work incredibly hard, but they have amazing genetics. There's every possibility that they're using performance enhancing drugs because they've built an audience based on the way that they look, not on their education. And so life is all about balance. You know, follow a bit of both, but if you are really wanting to understand how to achieve your goal, I implore you to find people who are educated in this field, because those people not only have the education, but they likely have the experience of having failed so many times. And I do include myself in that. I've been doing this for 16 years. It has not been plain sailing, far from it, in fact. So if you're passionate about achieving your goal, find somebody who is doing it and preaches it to the masses in a healthy, sustainable way. There's probably a few more, but I think they're the ones that stand out to me the most. So yeah, I hope this helps, gives a bit of inspiration, talking from the heart in this video. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.